Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Right. So let's start. This is TEAL 2.0 seminar series, and under that, we are having our first online related to online examination. We are going to have the first seminar. I first of all warmly welcome you for the session on behalf of University of Peradeniya as well as TEAL2 team. We warmly welcome you for the seminar series. So I will take a few minutes to talk about the seminar series, as well as what our expectation from this. At the same time, share a little bit about the TEAL 2.0 project, which is very relevant to the topic, as well as the current needs of the country as well. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I am Sampath Digalla. I'm the director attached to the Engineering Education Unit, Faculty of Engineering, University of Peradeniya. And under the Engineering Education Unit, we have recently set up TEAL 2.0 Support and Development Center, which we are going to disseminate knowledge on active learning technologies. So let me start briefly talk about the TEAL. So TEAL 2.0, this project we have started with the collaborating 11 other partner universities, as well as the University of Peradeniya as the coordinating partner. So the aim for this is technology-enabled active learning environment. So with the pandemic situation right now we are facing, I think it is high time that we use technology-enabled learning in our day-to-day lives, especially in the university environment, as well as other school and other educational environment as well. Because as a country, especially when we have resource poor institutions, so the aim for this project is coming up with a common platform to serve the institutes where the collaboration happens among the partners. So the project named as Improving Access to Science and Technology Higher Education in Resource Poor Institutions through an open platform for technology-enabled active learning environment. One of the reasons is, although we already have some technologies developed so far, we have some limitations. One thing is the same content you will see in different institutes. We will duplicate ourselves. At the same time, the possibility of sharing among the various partners. So the project objective is to improve the quality of the delivery. One thing is global oriented, and also especially science and technology higher education with all the partner countries, right? So the system would be a cloud-based and open access collaborative teaching and learning platform. Now, right now, I hope most of you are familiar with Moodle system, right? Learning management systems. But we will go one step ahead, starting from creating programs, delivery modules, as well as sharing the details among the partners. So as I told you earlier, so this will be collaborative work. And so let me introduce our partners as well. So here are the 11 partner institutions. We have 3 from national institutes, University of Peradeniya, and we have University of Moratuwa. And from the private sector, we also have Sri Lanka Technological Campus. And then we also have Asian partners as well as European partners. Okay, so we will have Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand, Indian Institute of Information Technology, Allahabad, Vellore Institute of Technology, India, University of Bologna, Italy, from the University European partners, University of Stavanger, we have Norway, and then Nasen University, Thailand, and we have Transylvania University, Brasov, right? Sorry for if I'm making mistakes in pronunciation. Finally we have RK University. And apart from that, we also have European Center for Quality. So that will be our QA partner. And I would like to introduce you the one of the persons actively involving in this. So that's Dr. Gagana. So I would like you to talk about the project for a few minutes.
Thank you, Professor. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Professor Sampadegala, and good afternoon to all the participants in this first workshop under the TEAL2.O project. I would gladly tell you a little bit more about the project. Do you think I could perhaps share my screen?
Yes, of course. Let me. Yes, you can. Maybe I will stop on my side.
Well, I believe you can see my screen. I'm not sure I can go into the full mode, but I hope this is okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
So, yeah, first of all, allow me to introduce myself again. So my name is Gargana. I have been involved in developing this project quite a long time ago, already back in 2019. I'm also involved as a quality manager and coordinator of the project. I have the pleasure to work with all these well-known universities to do something which I believe at the end would really matter for online education, not only in Asia, but also hopefully in other countries around the globe. So as you can see, as you could hear already, the project is implemented by a consortium of several universities, putting together European and Asian expertise to develop something that is hopefully suitable not only for countries in India, but also for countries in Europe. I would only like to start where Professor before me left off. I'd like to introduce also the European universities, because I believe he only introduced the ones from Thailand, India, and Sri Lanka. So from the European side, we are joined by University of Bologna, Italy, which is, I think, the oldest university in Europe. Also University of Stavanger from Norway, and Transylvania University in Romania. As first of all, just to say a few words about why we decided to do it. When we sat together back it was before the pandemic, when nobody knew how much we would need online education, but still at that time, it was really we believed it was really important for all the countries that participated in this project, not only for the Asian countries, but also in Europe, to improve access to science and technology higher education. We are witnessing increasing gross enrollment ratios in these fields, science and technology. Still there are some problems with reaching some underrepresented and disadvantaged groups. And in order to do that, to sustain the increasing enrollment ratios and to reach the disadvantaged group, we need to invest into open and distance learning, because most of those potential students perhaps cannot actually, come to the campus physically. They need to have other options of studying, and online is the best option nowadays. But as professor mentioned before me, online learning, especially in institutions without much resources, has some quality related challenges, which result from shortages of expertise, shortages of technological equipment, collaboration, and internationalization. So with this project, we actually want to address these challenges and to see what could be done using technology to actually help facilitate access to higher education for all groups in the society. And therefore, we set out to come up with this comprehensive technological solution, which is the TEAL2.O platform. And so, as you already learned, basically the project has a very simple goal. It wants to develop and to deploy an open access platform for technology-enabled learning environment, which would make it possible to deliver online education in science and technology in higher quality. So what is the TEAL2.O platform? First of all, it will be an open access collaborative teaching and learning platform. So two words are important here: open access and collaborative. Open access means that everyone would be able to use it if they would like to, perhaps with some institutional arrangements to install the platform. And it will be a collaborative platform, meaning that it will allow for collaboration in both teaching and learning. So what it will offer, we hope it can improve the access to massive online courses and other digital learning content which is developed around the globe. We hope it would support modularity and full customizability for all the institutions that are using the platform. And it would in this way allow institutions and faculty to design programs and develop teaching content to suit their local needs and their particular constraints that they're facing. And we, at the same time, we also hope that it could help them to actually address the challenges that underrepresented learners or disadvantaged learners face in accessing higher education in science and technology. It will have an autonomous assessment and quality assurance engine into it, which I think is pretty revolutionary. Maybe the colleagues would talk more about that, maybe in some other seminar when we will focus on that. It will allow for the integration of open source hardware and software into the learning process. And in this way, it can increase the exposure of learners to technology. Basically, the idea is to provide access to virtual labs and experimentation, which is something that I think is a general trend in some of the other. I believe in India, they have a similar national initiative to develop virtual labs. So I think it's being recognized. This is one of the key features of online education in science and technology. It has to provide possibility for students to access virtual labs remotely, rather than to expect them to always sit in the lab at the university campus. It will also improve the opportunities that online platforms offer for collaborative learning and teaching. And it would thus allow institutions without much resources to improve quality.
Sorry,
Sorry. Hello.
Yeah, I think you can. Yes, go on.
Okay, so and it will also promote learner-centered education, flexible learning pathways, and allow the learners to participate in the um, development of content, of learning content. We will also have some training activities. In the project, we will train the staff, faculty, and students to use and develop the platform. And we will establish the university centers, the TEAL2.O support centers, to provide user support and to promote the exploitation of the platform. So this is basically a short introduction to the project. Of course, I will be also happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your attention.
Right. Thank you, Gagana, Dr. Gagana. And yes, we will have a separate QA session. So I think you can ask this question, or you can put it in the chat so that we will be answering you one. So I hope you can see my screen. Right, let me just quickly go to the session. So in this session, our first session is actually use of online proctored examinations. So this will be done by Professor Roshan Ragal. He's the professor in computer engineering, University of Peradeniya. And also we have a Dr. Isuru Navin. He's a senior lecturer attached to the Department of Computer. So I would like to over to you, Roshan and Isuru. So we'll start the session one.
Thank you, Sampath. Good afternoon, everyone. So the plan for the next session, which myself, and Isuru will share, is on running proctored online exams using a set of tools. The tools are particularly Moodle, which is very familiar to all of the state university staff, because we all are using Moodle mostly. And then some similar other tools which are very familiar to you, things like Google Suite or Google Workspace, plus this open source tool called Safe Exam Browser. So in fact, what I will do is I'll give a quick background on all this, where we started, and at the University of Peradeniya, particularly at the Faculty of Engineering, what we have done with these three tools, and how we are conducting exams. I'll give a background, and then Isru will go into a little more detail of how things have happened. So just to take you back in time, when we closed the universities due to the pandemic in March 2020, we started online. Teaching, learning, and assessment. We were a bit concerned due to multiple reasons, starting from the authenticity of the assessment. So since then, in fact, the very first online exam, which is what we call proctored, we conducted at the faculty just one exam in way back about a year ago. And then we wanted to set up, and with the exam we understood it's not just about tools and technologies, it's more about how we get ready, the readiness of everyone, the institutional readiness, the stakeholder readiness, and so on. So then we were having several discussions within the faculty, and at one point, somewhere around December last year, we decided, okay, so this is time we should consider going for online examination which are authentic, and therefore we had to have various mechanisms to achieve it. So we came up with a procedure, a manual, with plans, with roles and responsibilities, some sort of a TOR. We came up with all these documents starting since December 2020, and we set up, we trained, or we got everyone ready, starting from students, starting from technical staff, the administrative staff, the academic staff. we train them one by one, different aspects of conducting online exams. So the sharing we are going to have is related to that, and from the training, and we also wanted to do all this sort of in a very collaborative manner, meaning bring all the stakeholders into the system and get them involved in the process of doing these online exams. And uh, give me a second, some noise. Isru, can you turn that off if you can?
Yeah, will do.
Right, thank you. Right, so we were like getting everyone ready, and it took a while preparing the proper guidelines, assigning different roles, different duties to different stakeholders, and then getting them ready and making them like having mock exam, trying these things out. All this took a lot of time and lot of effort. And with that, in March 2021, we conducted the very first set of online exams, authentic, we claim, online exams using these tools. So March 2021 is the very first set of exams we had. We had about 10 exams, and for a smaller group of students, about 60 students or 60 to 70. Since then, we are promoting this idea and also sharing our resources and the plans with others. And since then, we have, in fact, within the faculty, around May, June this year, we have conducted 50 more exams for our undergraduate students. Plus, we also have conducted large number of other exams, I don't have a count, for postgraduate students. So all these were done using this system now, and we believe this system is reasonably authentic, and with some its own flaws and issues, but it's authentic, and therefore, and also it adds a lot of value to the way how we conduct assessments, and particularly in this situation exams. So with that background and overview, I'll let Isuru to go through a few more details and share some stats and also some other findings. So we'll be online, and feel free to put any questions in the chat so that we can in parallel do that, answer questions. And also we'll have towards the end of the session a little time to share or have Q&A. Thank you. Isuru, over to you.
Thank you. And good afternoon to everyone. So, like Professor Agal was saying, in this section of the workshop, we'll be talking about a set of tools and procedures that we use to hold online exams at the Faculty of Engineering. And we'll also share our experience, our perspectives about this entire matter as well. Right. So as you've been told, earlier this year, around January this year, we started planning these online authentic examination, the modes and tools properly. And the very first exam was held around March for a set of final year students, to be specific, 72 candidates. And the exams were conducted for 8 different courses. And the successful completion ratio or rate, so to speak, was 98%. That is to say, of all the attempts made by these 72 candidates, over 8 examinations, there were 381 attempts total. And out of those, 98% we could consider as valid or complete. And we could say we reasonably proctored them. The rest of it, the 2%, since we couldn't provide the guarantee of doing a reasonable proctoring, we had to consider as unsuccessful. So that is 8 out of 381 attempts. And I had to say that out of these 8 also, say 6 of them happened in the very first day, very first examination. After that, only 2 unsuccessful attempts happened, because we also learned how to deal with these situations, as well as students also learned how to be better prepared. So In this very first round of authentic online examinations, we had two different modes. One is online proctored. So where in this mode, we try to replicate the regular exam hall environment that all of us are used to in the online space as closely as possible. So I'm saying as closely as possible because this is not 100% replication of the regular exam hall environment. There are certain common issues with both systems, and there are certain unique issues for the online system as well. So here we tried all kinds of different modes. Like we had closed book exams, regular closed book exams where students are not allowed to refer to any material. We had open book proctored exams where students are allowed to refer to specified material like lecture notes or short notes, things like that, printed or handwritten, while being proctored. So we also had different writing modes for recording the responses, like typing the answers using the keyboard in the computer, or selecting answers inside the computer itself, or writing answers on paper using pen, the regular traditional option. So we had all these different options included in our system, and within the first round of these proctored authentic examinations, we had a successful completion rate of 97%. So the 8 unsuccessful attempts that I mentioned earlier happened within this mode. Then we also had another mode, which is non-proctored, where we don't try to monitor the students while they're attempting the examination. So we are not trying to provide a guarantee on authenticity here. Here, this one works as a combination of a take-home exam plus an online viva. The take-home exam could be implemented with various different tools in various different modes. I'll not be going into details about this, but since this non-proctored mode inherently forces the exam to be open book, we cannot provide any guarantee about what materials the students are using. Authorized materials, we can't provide any guarantee, as well as we can't provide any guarantee about who they're talking to at the time they're answering the question. So, but within that set of restrictions, we designed the exams in such a way that the proctoring is not needed, and we supplemented it with an online viva. So I'll be focusing on the online proctored mode here. I'll not be talking about the non-proctored mode and its details. Then when we try to replicate the authentic or proctored environment in the virtual space, we had 3 different parts in this proctored virtual environment. So these 3 different parts in combination gives us the reasonable guarantee that the attempt of a candidate was authentic. It is authentic. We proctored it, and we are able to say with a reasonable guarantee that the attempt was authentic. So the first part is what we call it is the virtual exam room. Simply saying, it's a Zoom meeting like we are having right now. And in this virtual examination room, we had up to 12 candidates plus 2 invigilators. Now, this 12 number was decided based on various reasons. According to our understanding, this can be increased up to 20 or so without having too much issues. Then what happens is the candidates join this Zoom meeting, the virtual exam room, using a mobile device, mobile phone or a tablet, and they had to keep their video and audio turned on for the entire duration of the examination. So the invigilators can look at them and see how they behave, see what they are interacting with during the examination. So the video feed coming from these mobile devices should show the face of the candidate on their hands and part of their workspace, the tabletop. So the invigilators can clearly see what materials they are using. And they can clearly see if a second person is in the room and things like that. So the candidates are allowed to freely communicate with the invigilators for any reason whatsoever. They're able to just speak up and talk to the invigilator. And from the invigilator's perspective, this is what they will observe. An invigilator will observe the room like this. You can see that there are 12 candidates. The face, hands, and parts of the workspace are visible. The two members here without video feeds are the two invigilators of the room. So the two invigilators, one of them is the chief invigilator, who will be creating the actual Zoom meeting for this virtual exam room, and the chief invigilator will be giving the instructions and recording any official notes about any particular incidents that might happen, like a student getting disconnected at a particular time, things like that. So both invigilators are expected to obviously observe the candidates carefully about how they are behaving during the examination, and both are also required to record the video feed using the view that I showed earlier. That video feed has to be recorded by both invigilators, so that can be used for later analysis in case certain issues happen for particular students. The second part of this proctored virtual environment is the online assessment system. We used the Moodle software, the LMS that most of us are familiar with, to implement this online assessment system. And this is just a snapshot of what we implemented in the Faculty of Engineering. We kept it separate from the regular LMS that we use for teaching and learning. This is only for online assessments. And each course that has an exam will have a separate page within this OAS, and all the materials relevant to the examinations, like say admission cards or guidelines, everything that is relevant were shared using this online assessment system, the Moodle software. Also, we got the students to sign a consent form to let us view their video and record it during the examination. So that was also done through the system. And now on an examination day, when a student goes into the relevant course in this OAS, this is what they will see. They will see some instructions, a rubric of instructions about the examination, very general information, like what sort of questions to expect, the duration, what they should do at the end of the examination, things like that. And at the bottom of the page, I think you can see a couple of links. Those are the links to the virtual exam rooms that I mentioned earlier. And the student can just click on the appropriate link for their virtual exam room and go to the relevant Zoom meeting. So how they know what is the relevant room, that is from the admission card. Then in the middle, you can see a link to the actual exam paper. So that is set up as a Moodle quiz activity, if you're familiar with that. So when the student clicks on that, they will be taken into the examination. Now, I omitted a certain part there intentionally, which takes us to the third part of our proctored virtual environment, which is the safe exam browser. Now here, I told you that the student will be taken into the examination, but in reality, that doesn't happen. What they will see is something like this. Using a regular web browser like Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox or Apple Safari, you're not able to view the exam, the actual question paper. So what you will see something like what the candidate will see something like this, a statement saying this quiz has been configured so that students may only attempt it using the safe exam browser. So that is a separate software which is developed for things like these examinations, where the students are being restricted about what they can use in the computer. So what a student has to do is click on this button which says download configuration. That will download a tiny file. They will double click on it, and that will automatically open this safe exam browser software, and then they will be taken into the exam. And when that happens, this is what they will see. Their entire screen will be filled with the safe exam browser showing the exam quiz, the exam paper. And they will not be able to access anything else on their computers, like browse to other websites or open other software or copy paste or anything, right? Everything is restricted. We specifically allowed a couple of things like reloading the page and changing the wireless network connection in case they have some disturbance and need to change from one Wi-Fi to, say, mobile hotspot connection. So other than that, they can only view the battery status, the speakers status, whether that's turned on or off, and they can also turn off this entire browser and go out of the system. They are allowed that to allow that flexibility in order to handle troublesome situations like power cuts or computer issues. And we are able to later tell when a student goes out of the system and comes back in, our data logs will show us that this particular event has happened. So the student is not able to use anything else on their computer while the safe exam browser is on. Now, yeah, so that is these three parts together allows us to give this reasonable guarantee of the authenticity of the attempt, that the candidate themselves made the attempt and they did not have enough of a chance to collaborate with anyone or use any unauthorized material. Then in this system, there are a number of roles which are involved so far. These are the roles that we encountered. One is the candidate on the right-hand side, of course. They join the virtual exam room, they access the online assessment system and the quiz using Safe Exam browser. And then we had the two invigilators who are in charge of the virtual examination room, and they monitor and record any official notes from that. So visual proctoring will be done by them. And of course, we have the course coordinators or the evaluation panels, teaching panels, who will be setting up the examination and doing the actual evaluation of the responses. Then, other than that, behind the scenes, these are the roles or people who are involved in this whole exercise. One is the university administration. In our case, it's our assistant registrar and the office. So they are in charge of the overall process and coordinating official record keeping, decision making. Everything is done by the administration. And we also have OAS administrator, the administrator of the Moodle system, which hosts all these examinations, the Moodle quizzes and all the other software material. So the OAS administrator has to play a big role. And since it is very difficult for a single person to do this for a large set of exams going over weeks, we also have a set of managers, which are academic staff members who are very familiar with these tools, who can help other staff members as well as provide assistance to the candidates to prepare for these examinations using these tools. Then we also have a technical support team live before and during the exam, just a few hours before starting examinations, as well as during the examination, to provide support, especially to the candidates in case they're facing any issues. So we have channels like WhatsApp and other Zoom channels for candidates to get this support from the technical support team. Then, of course, as you can imagine, this whole exercise involves a lot of coordination and logistics. So we needed a central place to keep all the information, manage all the information about the examinations, where everyone other than the candidates have relevant access to certain pieces of information. So we call this the examination master sheet. It's basically a Google Sheet containing everything about the examinations other than the examination questions and question papers. So about, say, lists of eligible students, virtual examination room, Zoom links, invigilators lists, everything is kept here, updated here by the administration and other relevant parties. And things like even attendance are recorded here, and any specific remarks by the invigilators are also that's also recorded here. So that is a central place. It makes the life very easy for the entire team to coordinate using this. And we also had things like checklists to make sure that everyone in the lead up to the exams, everyone does everything at the appropriate time. And we developed a set of extensive guidelines for all the roles that I mentioned earlier, so that they know what they had to do before the exam, during the exam, and even after the exam. So to implement all these things, we used, as for software, we use Moodle, SEB, and Zoom. Like I mentioned earlier, these three are very key. And we also use shared Google Drive for storage of things like this master sheet or recorded video, everything. And for communication, we mainly we stick to WhatsApp because it's very convenient for everyone, especially the students. And we stick to email only for things like reminders because it's very difficult to keep track of information via email. So most of these tools are free. Only non-free tool is Zoom, and that is also free for state universities, thanks to Learn. And yeah, so these are free, and it makes us it's very convenient for us to set up all these modes and procedures using these free tools. So, and all of these are replaceable. Any of these tools that I mentioned here are replaceable by an alternative. So that flexibility is also there. Now, for experience, I will not go into too much details because of the limited time. But as Prof. Ragal was saying, we after this very first round of examinations we held in March, until now we held a number of exams using this set of tools, these procedures. So very recently we completed more than 50 proctored examinations for an entire batch of finalist students, more than 400 students. And right now we are planning the same for third year students and second year students as well. So other than these so-called end of semester examinations, we are also using variants of these procedures and tools for continuous assessments like quizzes, practical exams, stuff like that, which happen inside the courses during the teaching, which I think is more important actually when it comes to the actual pedagogical things. But that's a whole other discussion. And finally, yeah, we introduced these tools and procedures to other institutes around the island as well, other universities and institutions. And of course, we have some limited time today for question and answer. But if anyone wants to have a detailed discussion about these things, just let us know and we can set up a session and have an experience sharing based on our understanding. And I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Since we have some time, in case if you have any questions, I think you can take some time.
Dr. Vijayatna, go ahead. You can turn on the mic.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Professor. So I have one small clarification. This is regarding the devices. So if we ask to switch on the camera, so if any student said, so I don't have the camera or I don't have facility in my laptop to on the camera, so how we can solve? So what is the chance for them?
So yeah, so this is what ISRO mentioned, like we asked them to sign a declaration form where we are specifying the requirement, including the device that are required. So those who didn't have such devices, they arranged different ways, borrowing from friends, relatives, family, different ways they arranged, and we managed to get all of them, arrange it. That's how we managed. And then yeah, so that we did way before, and also we had mock exams. We had exams before, like a lot of trials early enough before the exam, so to make sure that their things are working and all that. So there are situations where things failed. I mean, one or two cases where their computer failed completely during the exam, and such things happened, but very rare cases. How we handled is by using by allowing them to prepare early and also try.
Okay, thank you. And that means we have to say it's compulsory and you have to be prepared. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And we asked them to, I mean, we made it sort of official. Our assistant registrar asked the students to comply or sign a form where these things are mentioned. And if they can opt out, if they are opting out, then they had to wait for some other exam or a later date.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
We can go on next, Samira.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Roshan and Dr. Suru, sharing your knowledge. Just question now, this invigilator and the candidate, was it a one-to-one kind of relationship, or was it a one-to-many relationship where like many candidates observed by one invigilator? And that situation, was there special hardware requirement for the invigilator side?
It's one to many. Our situation, we arrange somewhere like 1 to 12, or in fact like 2 to 12.
2
We
to
had
12.
the same room, two invigilators and 12 students, and it's a Zoom meeting room. And from the candidate side, we ask them to connect using a mobile phone and keep the mobile phone a little further away so that we can observe them. And it's like an open room. Anybody can talk. I mean, whatever we discuss, they are heard by everyone else. The students have both the camera and the speaker and all three mic on, and from the supervisor side or the invigilator side, they had like a gallery view of the candidates. So candidate will just have the supervisor. If the supervisor turned off the my camera, then they won't see anything. They will just hear things from the camera. I'm sorry, from the phone. And from the invigilator side, that was your question. It is you will see all 12 candidates on a gallery view. I hope that answered. So the next one, Professor Sudarshan, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Roshan. It's a nice information. So just only to understand, if there is an interruption, how do you overcome that? If it's a power cut or whatever it is, how to overcome this situation?
In fact, that's a long question. We have a long answer, but to be short, when there are power issues, if the issue is very short, like if you can manage it within a limited amount of time, we allowed them to be out for a limited amount of time, like something like 3 minutes for a 3-hour exam or 2-hour exam. That we allowed, but other situations we made sure, if let's say they have power on their mobile phone but don't have power on their computer, so situations like that we considered them as proctored because we are observing them, so we allowed extra time. So if they are proctored, we allowed them extra time. If they are not proctored, we gave them a very small time, and if they go past that time, we are going to say, okay, it's not authentic because we couldn't observe them. So that's what we did.
Okay, thank you.
Professor Deepthi Vandana, hello ma'am.
Hello, Roshan. My question was almost the same. I had this question about the power cuts since our students are from all over the country. But you said that there was a way to figure out how much time they were losing because of the power cut. Now, did you give extra time if it went like over a certain number of minutes?
If it is, yeah, I mean, if we are observing them, let's say because they are coming connected through the phone, so if we are observing them, we consider that as authentic. So because they can't do anything because we know what they are doing. So if we are observing them, even half an hour, we can give that extra time. So we
Right.
did give such time. But if you are not observing them, let's say they completely gone out,
Uh-huh.
then very sorry, we can only give them 3 minutes, and more than that, no. Very sorry, we can't guarantee. So they have to come back and do
Oh, I
another.
see. And what was the frequency of that kind of occurrence?
So the like second set where we had large number of exams, we don't have samples, but the small one where we had about 350 attempts, which is like 70 students,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's 98% were okay, like 2%.
All right, okay.
Overall, it was less than 1% who had issues.
Overall, it's less than 1%. That's what ISRO's number says.
Okay, thanks.
Uh,
We'll take the last one, Roshan.
yes, sure. Go ahead. Nine.
Yeah. Professor Ragel, I have the same sort of question, not the power cuts, but the internet issues. Sometimes students can use it as an excuse. So did you ever happen to have any experience of such nature?
We don't have any reason to believe so, but it could happen. Yes, we agree. They can pretend, if that is what you mean.
That's
Yes.
what I meant. So
So it's possible, but we didn't have any reason to believe so, that they are pretending, but it's possible. There's a long answer, but I'll skip. We can have a separate chat, but yeah, so it's possible.
okay, thank you.
Okay, I think I will take over. I hope you can, we can have few more minutes at the end of the session. So I will take a few minutes to talk about my session on how to conduct online examination using Google Form and with some third-party plugins. So you have already seen what we were proceeding, like in our case, we have a separate setup, but then again, sometimes when you have very large groups, as well as when you want to conduct some online assessments, then I also experimented with available ways of conducting online examination. So this combination use of Google Forms with QuillGo, it's an add-on to Google Forms, which gives a proctoring part of it. So let's start. So if we start with the Google Forms, I hope majority of you are familiar with the use of Google Forms for quizzes, other assessments. And one of the reasons why I prefer is sometimes it's very quick and easy to use it, although you have Moodle also provide you the same. And in other case, if I want to use the same in the Moodle, so it will facilitate that we can embed with even the Moodle as well. And the other one is like, what I like is the collaboration part of it. So collaboration part gives us a freedom, like if several of us involving in an assessment where we can share and we can quickly prepare it. And also, the responses getting into a spreadsheet, which will also given in Moodle, but you can also port into something like Google Data Studio to, summarize the results, right? But one of the problems is Google will not provide the time limitation, which means like if we want to limit it so far. So the additional functionality, we have to get it from other third-party tools. So there are many tools available, and this is one of them, where will gives you online proctored assessment, not comprehensive like what we have seen in what Professor Ragal and Dr. Navin presented, but you have a time tracking camera as well as screen tracking, which is, I think, reasonable for you to have a simpler system, right? Because in the previous one, we need a separate technical team, and then also you have to train personnel. But let's say you are going to have a large number of students in a shorter period of time, maybe this is the way to go, right? And then the process that I have followed for a couple of exams I have done for postgraduate students as well as the first year, where we have about now the very recent batch, we have about 500 students. So you simply start with the creating a Google form, and then you enable the plugin, where the plugin will give you the opportunity to decide on what to track, meaning like the free version, you can simply send in this, and then also you have camera tracking as well as a screen tracking. So that part you have to work on. Once you complete the Google form, you have to enable that plugin, and then you have to how I actually send emails through the link. Now if you use Google form, then anybody else can access it, and multiple attempts are possible. But with this one, it will restrict per person. You will have only unique attempt. That is one thing. And then once you enter the email, you can send it to the students, and then the student can start, right? Now, like you said, now when we conduct this kind of this is also like online setting. There could be like power failures, internet connectivity issues, and so on. So therefore, apart from this, we also had a setup in a Zoom session in case if the student face some technical difficulties. So that's how the process we handle any technical issues when student faces. And then also, like, we have possibility, like as a since we use Google Forms, especially in my case, I have used mainly for MCQs. And then there's a facility at the end of the exam, they could also submit their rough sheets. So in that case, we will put it into Moodle, right? So these are like the mechanism or the process that we have followed for conducting the exam. Now, just to show you like how it looked like, I'm not going to talk about the Google Forms, but in case if you need like tips and tricks, what techniques we have used, we can have another session on that one. But assuming that we have properly set up the Google form, so we can to create the exams. So like in your left hand side, what you see is the set of exams, and then you have the list of students. So you have to create first of all tests. So when you're creating a test, you have to provide the student details as well as the exam duration, whether you are going to limit it to a particular time slot, right? And then whether you need to enable camera tracking, screen tracking, so that you can have to decide in the beginning. But once you do that, you can send it to the test to students. And if they, in case if they say, okay, they have not received it, you can manually resend, or it will generate a unique link where you can give it to student, and that unique link only for that particular student. And there are various reports are there where you can track. Now, for example, to give you some idea, like once you send the exam, if all the details are recorded here, like send time, started time, whether they have finished, whether there are any issues is out of focus because they have to focus in the beginning. So I will show you a small graphic on that one. And automatically it will checks on the face presence, whether there are any multiple faces detected. It's very simple yet, but it will give you a tracking report, and also indicated where you should look for. Not everywhere, but some places, if the system suspect something, then it will indicate it in a different color so that you can manually visit and see, right? So let me show you, like, okay, so in the beginning, when you send the test to the students, so student will see something similar to this one, where like there will be a timer, and then they will have the Google form. So when they start, the timer runs out, and then depend on your configuration, so it might close automatically, right? That you need to set up in the beginning, right? Now, one thing is student has to allow the camera tracking as well as the screen tracking. So they have to accept both. In that particular case, if there's a failure, then we have to handle in a situation differently. Now let me show you like some of the things that you can access in the system when you go for the report. So tracking report normally will tell us the face representation, whether they go loud and no on. And also sometimes they will use like green color, yellow color to indicate that some suspicious places where you can go and click, and then you can get a larger view. So similarly for the screen as well, so it will be the same. So you can go to the screen and you can see what they have access. Now in this particular case, you can't prevent it like a safe exam browser, which means you are students are free to access anything they want. But you can, when you're preparing questions, then you have to be very careful about this. Maybe you have to prepare open-ended questions, right? Or maybe, not, memorization questions like that. So that is one thing you need to do. Right. Now, let me explain a little bit about my experience of conduct or using this system. Actually, we were using the other one as well, but time to time, depend on the facilities we available. So in all these exams, actually, I conducted by myself, right? So when you want to have a proctored, the system that we have developed in the university, it was a comprehensive one. I think that's the best option for right now. But in case like you need limited time and then you have very large group, and for simple assessment, like sometimes mid-semester examination and so on, we preferred this way. So what I did actually, I have conducted postgraduate exams with 17 students, as well as I have done first year mid-semester examination with the 2 batches so far. So the numbers are given. So let me talk about some of the feedback I've received now. This is now the system is now, I hope you get a clear picture. But these are the issues in case now you should be knowing. So these are actually I have collected after finishing the exam. I have some feedback mechanism where a student can write down what difficulties they have actually faced. So the limitations right now in this combination is they cannot, draft option in case if there's a disconnection, maybe you have to start from the beginning. So that is something is lacking. And that is something we could develop. Remember, now we are developing the TEAL2. So in that TEAL2 project, so some of these things we could address in case if we think they are required. And the time issues, which means like some of them, spend more time in the beginning to start with, and then that sometimes when they try to change the configuration, so they sometimes had the time issues. And other complaint that I have received is sometimes when you have a lot of images, right? So we have to be very careful, because sometimes depend on their data, so it might not properly visible. So these are some of the things that we have noticed. And the fourth one is data charges. Yes, I think you have heard that if you're using Moodle and the university system, the data is free. But unfortunately, since you are going outside of this, so this takes some amount of data, which sometimes students complains. And then one of the things I actually did, I have separate out the question into different sections. So because of that, when you say questions are compulsory, so that is the settings, make sure that all the questions are answered properly. Then student has to go page by page, which might be a bit of a problem. So those are some of the things. And then also like the confirmation details, and majority they say they prefer physical exams because they expect the traditional environment. So we have some opposition of having online examination, but I think majority now they are comfortable. Even some of them actually suggested Zoom and the Safe Exam browser. Some of the students were saying that, okay, that's better, right? And also like, since I was the only person who's handling the technical issues, so some of these places they were asking to have complete technical handling team, like in our official examinations. Right. I think that's all I have. So maybe if you have any questions, we can answer, or else we can go to the next session.
Sampath, there are some questions in the chat. Maybe you can just quickly answer.
Okay, I will maybe take 1 or 2 questions from the chat. Okay, thanks, Roshan. Right. Let me take the first question. Hashini asked if this is the app is free. So this is free for limited number of test cases. If I remember correct, it's about 200 tests. That means you can handle 200 tests per month is free. But if you want to go for more with camera tracking, so you have to pay some amount. So it's about $6, if I remember correct, about 1,000 rupees per month, which I don't mind in my case, but it's not free completely. And then yes, one of the thing is like if they are using Now the question is, can QuickGo monitor the screen of the students to see whether they are accessing answers or perhaps a separate tab while doing the exam paper? If they are using the same device, this application records that even in the separate tab, because it will record whole screen, whole computer, right? So even if you go out, it will record this one. So they have some mechanism where maybe I can show you some examples where it will record whole screen. Right. And then Suresh asked about the, did you say that the QuickGo, if there's a disconnection, everything entered is lost for the students? Yes, that's what the feedback we right now got. But then again, the question is not actually lost, because normally in Google Forms, even in offline, you can go, only problem is you can, proceed to the next one. But then again, when you are restarting, then you have to enter from the beginning. The Kamal asked, I will take that as the last one, and I will answer that after the Dr. Al-Kadua's presentations. The question is whether you have advantages over the Moodle one, right? So in the Moodle one, right now the problem is this proctoring part. So that's why, and also the right now the plugin is actually they have developed for Google Form. So one thing is, either we have to find a plugin where Moodle can support, which I think we can consider in TEAL2.O development, right? So where we could, develop that proctoring part, then I think the Moodle is better than a Google Form, because you have a lot of options. Right. Thanks. Then there are a few more questions, but I'll come to those once we have the Dr. Al-Kadua's presentation. So our next presenter is Dr. Damika Al-Kadua. He's a senior lecturer attached to the Department of Computer Engineering. So he will also share his experience on online examinations. Dr. Al-Kadua, it's over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sampath. I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see you.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my experience on conducting online exams. So as Sampath said, I'm attached to the Department of Computer Engineering, University of Peradeniya. But what I am going to share is based on my experience at SLTC. I was at SLTC last year for a sabbatical. And this whole pandemic thing started while I was there, and we had enough and more issues there. And this is my experience from that side. So I'm actually going to talk about it from a slightly different point of view. I think I'm not going to focus that much on technology, but maybe I'll talk a little bit about technology stuff as well, but more to do with the kind of the overall process, right? So if you sort of look at this entire online examination system, so you, on one side, you have the students who are stuck at home, and maybe you have the parents, and then you have teachers and whatever the university administrators, and there's sort of a whole set of rules and regulations on what is on examinations and how the exam should be conducted and so on. Right, so that is another aspect I think which we need to focus on as well. Say, if I may go back to the Peradeniya rules and regulations on examination, they are pretty very clear and very elaborative on what do you mean by examination offense, how to report examination offense, and all that is very neatly written down. Right, so whatever the technology we have, it's not going to be used. It's not going to be that useful unless you tie it up in the rules and regulations. For example, you might catch a student cheating, maybe via your Zoom proctoring. But whether you can punish the student, whether you can take it any further would be determined by the rules and regulations of your university, right? So that is also another aspect that we need to look at. So I just wanted to sort of look at this from different angles. So I actually want to talk about the online examination process, starting from the setting up of the paper itself, right? So there are some things that we need to consider there. And if you get that right, if you get the paper setting right, most of these problems of students copying and the need for continuous sort of proctoring and all that, maybe you can reduce it to a certain level if you can set up the paper in a proper way, right? So that's something that I want to touch upon. And then, of course, students copying and helping one another, blah blah, and then proctoring stuff. I think many of the previous speakers also mentioned about it, and I'm going to touch upon another tool only at that point. And then, of course, the other question is the sort of the examination, the whole examination process, right? How is getting affected with online stuff, and how to sort of keep it, and then things like how do you mark the papers, how do you keep marked copies, because they are like legally bound to keep it for 5 years, and so on, right? So those kind of things are what we considered. So on top of whatever that was discussed earlier, I thought maybe I should share these things as well. So when it comes to setting up papers, I strongly believe that it has to be open book exams, right? So very sort of low levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, you should not be testing them, especially in a online exam. So I have a different view on whether you should be testing them at all, but leaving that aside, at least for an online exam, you should not be having questions like list the whatever the chemicals needed for a plant or whatever, right? So things like that. So very questions that only test the memorization, you should not be asking, right? It has to be open book exams. I mean, it's very difficult to conduct closed book exams. You might think that it's possible, but it's not. I mean, let me take you to the other side of this. Now we have been talking about the safe examination browser and all that. So if you type on Google, there are enough and more ways where you can break the safety of the safe examination browser, right? So you should not be relying just on that, right? You should be clever in setting up the questions, so that sort of you can have some protection from that side as well. So I'll give you a couple of examples as we go on. And the other thing is, you need to make sure that even an average student needs the whatever the allocated time to complete the paper, right? So make sure that students who are engaged in the paper, that they don't have time to help others, right? And yeah, so and of course, whatever the questions that you're setting up, make sure that other factors, like for example, how fast you can type, will not affect how familiar you are with other tools. That would not affect the assessment, right? So that's of course obviously, even in a handwritten paper, how fast you can write in piece of paper would determine how would have some bearing on your marks. But then again, we are sort of okay to live with that. So make sure that how fast you can type is not there. So when we were doing this, we sort of looked at sort of if you can call it that, a threat model, right? So what kind of things can happen, right? So like if a student is cheating, what are the possibilities? So the first thing is students can help one another. So proctoring would help here, and obviously what we did there is, even if you don't have the proctoring part, we make sure that students don't have the time to help another, right? So the paper is such that you need the entire allotted time to finish it, right? And then we sort of, though we didn't really do it, we said we are going to grade everything and then set it to a curve. So you have a natural sort of a deterrent to help others, right? Say if everyone gets 80, then no one will get an A, right? So you are sort of trying to, so the moment you help someone, you're sort of diminishing your grade itself, right? So that was like, I mean, even without SEB or proctoring or whatever, that will act as a natural deterrent for the students to help another, right? And then questions, randomizing questions, you can do this with Moodle and whatever, the idea is a student might say, okay, the answer for question number 1 is 5, or what, like if it's an MCQ, you might do that. But when the questions are randomized, you can't do that easily. And if a student is to help the other one, then he has to go through the question for that particular person. You don't know what the question is, right? And you can also base questions on specific values. For example, you can, based on the student, actually, I also got to know this while they were trying to do this. Now you have, like, if you take the ID card number, apparently the last few digits are random numbers, right? So you can use that as the sort of the input, like some value in your question, right? So that students will have individual questions, right? So no one will be able to help another, and then particularly given that you need the allotted time to complete your answers, you will not be helping another, right? And then the other threat that we see is if you get a complete outsider to come and help, right? So this is sort of students in the same batch helping one another. So that's sort of without going into SCB and then proctoring and all that. So if you have these techniques there, then there would be some kind of a deterrent from students helping one another. And then the other question is, what if someone completely outside comes and helps, right? So there what we did was we set up the question papers in such a way that you need to have followed the course to answer it, right? For example, if I take an example from a course that I did, I was teaching programming, and the question was based in such a way that if you haven't done the labs, right? So it was based around the lab that we did on something. So if you haven't done that lab, it was very difficult to come up with an answer for that question. Even for a complete outsider, it will take a longer time. He will obviously be able to answer it, but it will take a longer time. But had you done the lab before, then we could have easily answered it within the given amount of time, right? And of course, getting help from the other resources. So this is another, I have to be very open about this. When you're setting questions, make sure that these questions themselves are like, you're not copying it from some internet source, right? Or not copying questions from a textbook, right? So if you can add to that, if you can make sure that your questions are like that you will not be able to find the answers for them in the internet. It might be difficult, but once you get the hang of it, it's not that difficult as well. Obviously, it might vary from subject to subject, but you can do it, right? But what I see is some of the questions that we set up, they are either directly taken from a textbook or from the internet, and we expect students not to cheat, right? Not to sort of find the answer from the internet, and that's very difficult to achieve. And I think if you can come up with nice papers, you can reduce the whole burden on the proctoring side. Now, in terms of proctoring, I think there were a lot of discussions about many different tools, and this is one that has been used at SLTC. So this was actually developed by a local company, a group of graduates from University of Moratuwa, in fact, and it is designed looking at the Sri Lankan context. Right. So the cool thing about this tool is that it doesn't need a continuous connection between the student and the server. So you have a server, and the server, it's the usual story. The server captures the video of the student, the audio, and the screen. Right. However, the cool thing about this, and of course there is some AI in it, where if you are based on similar to what Sampath was showing, it will tag the video. So you don't have to do a continuous monitoring, not like the Zoom session where the invigilator, it's the whole responsibility of the invigilator to monitor the students. There's some AI built in which will tag the video. If there is a sort of a unwanted movement or a suspicious movement of the student, it will tag it, right? So that you can monitor more students with lesser number of invigilators. And so that feature is also there. But the good thing about this is it doesn't rely on a continuous connection. So it's running on the student's laptop. Even if the internet connection is lost, it's still running on the student's laptop, and it's going to capture things, keep it locally, and upload it to the server once the connection is established. right? So the moment, like, it's a nice solution for country like ours. There are you don't have a stable connection. So these other solutions, they rely on a decent network, but this one does not. So that's something that I just wanted to highlight. And of course, the other thing is sort of we also got the students to sign in a declaration, and we got the parents to countersign that as well. So basically, just to put some sort of play some mind games and then make sure that students will not be cheating. So that's another aspect that you can really work on. And then the other thing that I want to really highlight is these exam violations. You need to also get back to your bylaws after uni and all that, and see whether you can whether you can report an exam violation. Whether when you record something on Zoom, whether you can punish the student, whether you can use that as evidence for exam violation. Right. So at SLTC, we actually revised all our bylaws and we got it approved from the Senate and the Council before we started the exams. Right. So just wanted to touch on that point as well, because I felt that this is some area that most of us forget. And of course, the other one is how do you mark and how do you sort of keep these things for record? So what we did was the submissions were sort of taken out as PDFs, and the marking was done on the PDF itself, and they were sort of archived with a hashtag, right? So this hashtag is basically a value that you get, and if anything is changed, so you can get a hashtag for archive or a file or whatever, and if any value in that file is changed, you will not get the same hashtag. Right, so that way you know that whether this is tampered or not. So the idea was, now in good old days we used to have these hard copies. We mark it, we bundle it, we keep it in a safe place. Right, so we want to mimic the same thing. So now we have a digital signature which can be verified, which can be used to verify whether it was tampered or not. Right, and then it was kept at the AR office with the hash codes, so that later on you could verify whether there was any tampering. Yeah, so just to sort of wrap up, I think the most important part in conducting an online exam is convincing your stakeholders, especially the lecturers and also the students. Right, so lecturers in terms of setting up a paper and sort of getting around that mindset of giving a physical paper. Having all the students in a room and you walking around and checking your sort of whether they're doing the right thing. So coming out of that mindset is the biggest challenge. So we had to do a lot of workshops, a lot of training sessions, and so on. So to convince people that this is doable, right? So that's the biggest thing. And then of course the other one is sort of looking at your rules and regulations, whether how this would fit into the rules and regulations which are usually derived for physical exams. So that's my side of the story. I only have 2 more minutes. Sorry, I took a little bit more time than what I expected. So if you have any questions, let's take that up as well.
By the way, small announcement, we have shared the feedback link. Please take some time to give us a feedback on the sessions.
Mr. Bigal, there was a question for you, right? Maybe you can take that as well.
Which one do you think?
No, you said there is a question and you will take it up later.
Professor Ragel answered that one.
Okay.
Dr. Gagana's question.
All right.
Damika, can I ask a question?
Yep, sure.
You were talking about randomizing.
Yeah.
What is your take on making Moodle, for example, provides this sequential access to questions? So you randomize and give sequential access, right?
Yeah, so, randomize sequential, yeah.
Yeah, so there is a counter argument coming saying that, some questions may be hard for some students, some questions may be easier for some questions. So Is it kind of fair practice? What is your take on that?
No, it depends on actually depends on what you want to like. How do you set up the paper, right? So if you do that, I mean, if you have easy questions and then hard ones at the end, randomizing that might not be the ideal thing. Say if a student is faced with a very difficult question at the very beginning, then he might get discouraged, right? So if all the questions are not at the same level, then randomizing might not be the way to go, right? It depends on how you want to set up the question, I suppose.
Can I also
the
add?
questions are all equal, that's okay. That's what
Yeah, if they're all equal, then it doesn't. Yeah.
Thanks,
yeah, just to add to that comment. So what we normally used to do, I told you, like setting up the questions when you have put into sections and then you randomize in that section.
Yeah.
So then the students go from one to the other. At the same time, when you have like similar questions, we made like another set of questions very similar. It looks the same, but slightly altered the one. It's what we want to do is prevent cheating. So you make a question pool so that the questions given to different students, by look at it, it will be the same question, but actually it's not.
Thank you, Professor Dhirakala. Yeah, I think we need to be a step ahead of them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And one thing on this Dhamika's thing, even if we shuffle and all that, today they share the answers. So it doesn't really, like, it's not option 1 for question 1. It's local area network, the answer, right? They write that and share. So you need to be, as you said, we need to be a step ahead. Thank you.
Okay, then if you have no questions, maybe we can wind up the session then.
Thank you so much, and very brave to do this. Thank you so much.
Okay, then as a close remark, I would like to thank all the participants first, taking their time to attend our first series of seminars. And also I would like to thank all the presenters. They shared their knowledge as well as spend time on with this one. So as the director as well as Director of Engineering Education, and also like we attach the Support and Development Center for TEAL2. We thank all the presenters, as well as I want to thank Dr. Gagana for taking time to attend the seminar series. So I hope you enjoyed the session. Also, I hope it was a very full informational series, and we are going to have another one on the same line, which Dhammika had actually talked about the regulations and the procedures, and also the how you may start from the beginning, where you set up all the learning objectives and how do you measure those in the exams as well. So that will be our next part, and hopefully we will announce it to you. So please take some time to give your feedback, and in case if you would like to receive more information about the TEAL2 activities, please put your email as well. Having said that, thanks everyone, and thanks a lot. Hopefully we can meet with another session. Prashant, if you want to share something.
That's it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks then. Thanks everyone.
Pleasure.